This is going to be a game of this or that. Biggest surprise, or relative to the choice is 2, it's bigger. Because there's got to be more than 2 to be biggest. I learned that in the 5th grade. All right, but I've since forgotten it. Bigger surprise, the Vikings at 5-0 or the Commanders at 4-1, Devin?
Commanders at 4-1. Rookie quarterback Jaden Daniels is a stud, just out there dominating. I think a lot of people thought he was going to be good, but they thought the team wouldn't be good and he wouldn't be able to have success with the guys on the team. So for them to be 4-1, with a new head coach, new owner, all the newness about the Commanders, big shout out to the Commanders. I think that's a bigger surprise.
I'm more surprised by the Vikings, and I can back this up with a couple of things. Number one, and I've mentioned this before, I don't know if I've mentioned this to you, but when we were at the Scouting Combine talking to defensive players, and we tried to ask every one of them, who was the toughest guy you faced in college? The SEC guys said without hesitation and in hushed, reverent tones, Jaden Daniels. And it got us to thinking this guy might have something. And between that and all the change they're trying to make, and the NFC East versus the NFC North this year,
yep.
I think it's no contest. You got all 4 teams in the NFC North above 500. All 4 teams are good in the NFC North. I thought the Vikings on paper were the number 4 of 4 teams in the division. In the East, I mean, Washington's 3rd, I thought, going in. And I also, and these don't mean anything because you get them as wrong as you get them right. I did pick the Commanders to make the playoffs. So I kind of thought something was going to happen. I had a better feeling about them than I did about the Vikings. So I'm more surprised by the Vikings. I just thought the Vikings would be 1-4 at this point, and here they are 5-0.
You just can't get out of the way of being a Vikings fan. You can't think positively. The Vikings, they have the best coaching situation in the NFL, so you knew no matter what, they were going to be there and have a chance. Maybe not 5-0, but the Commanders 4-1 and looking like the NFC East favorites right now early in the season, could not have predicted that.
How long have you been alive?
So 37 long years.
All right. Okay. Add 13 long years on top of that. Okay? And that's how long I've been conditioned to accept that whenever it feels like it's going well, that's when the bottom is going to drop out. So that's your life plus more than a third has been my experience over and over again, year after year, dealing with what I know is eventually going to happen this year as well. Bigger surprise between the Jets at 2-3 and the 49ers at 2-3. What's your bigger surprise?
It's got to be the 49ers. And the truth of the matter, being 2-3 is not a horrible thing in the NFL. You're a game away from 500. You can still do everything you want to do. But we just see the 49ers as this dominant football team. We've talked about them being one of the most complete teams in the NFL. So you just always picture them either undefeated, maybe one loss. I didn't think they would be, 2-3 at this point in the season. So, and the hard thing I think with the 49ers is, some of these games, 2 of the games they lost, they were up big. They should have won. So you definitely didn't expect to see them at 2-3.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. Coming into the year, the Jets were in that category of teams that I don't know what they're going to do. Let's just see. Mm-hmm. And it bothered me that there was this presumption that, okay, Aaron Rodgers gets injured on the 4th snap of the first game last year, misses the rest of the year, and he's going to come back and everything's fine. He's going to play 17 games. He's going to be healthy. The team's going to be great. It's that's just not realistic. They got 3 games between September 9 and 19 to start the season. They're getting jerked all over the place. Prime time here, London there. Yeah. It's a grind before the season even gets rolling. I mean, by their bye week, they are going to be cooked, at least just physically how they feel. And so that doesn't surprise me that they're at 2-3. The 49ers, this reminds me of 2020, the year after they last lost to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. They had injuries. They fell off, and the next thing you know, they're just an also-ran in the conference and in the division. And it hurts for them to be 0-3 in the conference and 0-2 in the division because the tiebreakers are not going to be on their side once we get down to the Steve Kornacki phase of the season and we're charting out the percentages of how and why and when a team gets in. All right, bigger surprise between the 1-4 Jaguars and the 1-4 Cleveland Browns?
Well, we just talked about it before. It's definitely the Cleveland Browns. This team made the playoffs last year without their starting quarterback. Joe Flacco comes in. This defense, I think I ranked their secondary, the first secondary in the NFL, one of the top 5 defenses coming in. You just thought, like, hey, if we just get Deshaun Watson to have a little bit of that magic he had in Houston, this team, forget being 1-4, this team could be a contender to be one of the top teams in AFC, and it is just not happening. I don't know how many people had, really high expectations for the Jaguars coming into this year.
Well, I think that I'm more surprised by the Browns because they were also in that I don't know what they're going to be category. They were the biggest wild card last year, and they made it to the playoffs. They were the biggest wild card this year, and they're 1-4. The Jaguars, I felt like were, the way it ended last year. What have they really done to get better? So I am more surprised by the Browns just because I didn't know what to expect from the Browns this year. And when you look at the defense and just all the factors, it's just something's off. And it hurts worse, I think, for fans when you really start to think we're building something, and then it all falls flat. By the way, to further reinforce the point I was making earlier, I do have the double whammy as it relates to football fandom. Cousin texted me to point out that the way I describe being a Vikings fan for 50 years, the exact same thing applies to being a fan of the West Virginia Mountaineers. That every time it feels, except when we're playing Rutgers, every time it feels like it's going the right way, you knew that was coming. Every time it feels like it's going the right way, it all implodes. Kind of like this show, although
West Virginia, that's a lot.
This show never.
Pat White, no. West Virginia has some good years.
Whoa, no, but I really don't want to pick at this scab, but. December 2007, the table was set. We're 28-point favorites over Pitt. All we got to do is win that game, and I think that year, playing on turf, the way that Mountaineers offense was premised would have run circles around Ohio State for the national championship, and it all disappeared in a 13-9
Oh, that's your fault. You were thinking national championship from West Virginia? That's your fault. That's ridiculous.
Yes. No. I'm telling you, Devin, it was – I know your brain doesn't want to accept that, but West Virginia, we win that game, we're in the national championship, and I think they would have beaten Ohio State that year, and I especially think it because they didn't get a chance to do it. If they got a chance to do it, they would have lost, but they didn't get a chance to do it, so in my mind, they would have won. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.